What's up everyone and welcome to today's video. It's been 2 weeks now since the launch of Apex Legends 6th season, so today I'm going to run down what I find to be the good, the bad, and the ugly with this season. I'll be starting out with the good, and as we move into the bad, I'm going to try to offer constructive ways of improving those issues, as not to just spread blanket negativity. The gameplay you'll see is sourced from my Apex Legends streams, so if you end up enjoying this, consider dropping a follow over on our Twitch, linked down below. So let's get into it by starting with the good, and honestly, there is a lot of good with this update. Now, you can't start talking about the new Apex Legends season without talking about the new map, and while we didn't get Olympus as many fans expected, we did get a major overhaul to World's Edge, one that I think truly innovates and makes World's Edge a wholly great map to play, minus the end of our fabulous loot train. May you rest in peace. The rotations of the map are much cleaner and offer a great balance between the early game rotations of the new paths and the rising wall of our new locations, allowing greater defense for early rotators. The map also gains a lot of new character that gives us a vibe of what society and industry in the Apex Legends universe looks like, and thusly what a future trip to Olympus could resemble for the Apex games. Next is the Evo Armor meta. While the armor change has drastically shifted the overall gameplay of Apex Legends and been very divisive among the community, I'm seeing it as an overall positive change. The Evo Armor change allows for much cleaner gameplay at the start of the match and closes the gap between those finding immediately high armor and those who do not. Additionally, by the nature of Evo Armor, we now have a much better late game environment. Between the now universal damage leveling and the crafting materials carrying through death, surviving fights when you are pushed out of the loot location, or making dicey banner grabs before slipping away now feel way more rewarding. Whereas before, you could often feel like you're respawning into being at the bottom of the totem pole with very few ways to crawl back up for the final fight. Speaking of crafting, let's talk about Apex Legends' crafting system. The crafting system and resource gathering really succeeds in diversifying gameplay and making sure players cannot be RNG loot screwed. Whereas before you could find yourself in poor loot locations and far from squads to fight for loot, there is now no excuse to be under-equipped unless you choose not to engage, not to loot, or not to craft. While there is something to be said about some of the weapon selections for the dailies, I think this system has been implemented extremely well, and I'm excited to see how it evolves and grows. The season quest has been updated to reflect a much cleaner user experience. I think it's fair to say a lot of people didn't like the gameplay elements of last season's quest, and that isn't to say that they didn't want story missions, but that the gameplay around them didn't feel fresh or exciting. I'm personally hoping the gameplay challenges return in the future, more fleshed out, but given the state of the games industry, I'll take full-colored comics from Dark Horse as a fantastic next step. Hopefully that's followed by utilizing the amazing voice cast they've got for full motion comics. Next, I want to spotlight Bloodhound's ult buff, which has been fantastic. The biggest issue I've always had with Bloodhound is the idea that they had to slow down as the ultimate hunter to redo scans when ulted. I thought for a time they could buff it by making the POV work like Crypto's drone, highlighting enemies they see on Predator vision for your teammates, but this quick scan buff really helps fix those issues while keeping the core character design intact. Then you add the greater time extensions for knocks and kills, the recon buff for all recon units, and we're looking at some new fresh life breathed into Bloodhound moving forward. Speaking of legends, how could I not talk about our newest legend, Rampart? Rampart is a real breath of fresh air in terms of gameplay diversity. Oddly enough, I find her ult to be the worst ability in her toolkit, but the play patterns she introduces have been extremely interesting. The amount of fights where I get ambushed or third-partied, and she allows my team to actually stabilize rather than getting snowballed, has been amazing. Then of course you have her general fortifications for those playing to rotate and bunker only. On Kings Canyon, her walls have been especially great for filling the wide areas that lack cover. Though they do compound issues to the already existing choke points, I think that says more about the map design than it does Rampart's abilities. Aside from that, all of her voice lines are super fun. Her full kit is obviously perfect for team play while still being great for soloing. Her legendary skins are super clean, and for me she's tied with Revenant as the second best DLC character at launch. Finally, there's the Battle Pass. The Battle Pass's content really feels like a throwback to the launch aesthetic of this game, which I loved. There's not a single skin I'm disappointed with, and I think the personality-driven content like drop emotes, voice lines, and the new holo sprays are just fantastic. If you want more on the Battle Pass specifically, check out our video reviewing the entire Season 6 Battle Pass, linked down below. Alright, so now that that's out of the way, we're gonna move into the bad. Again, I want to stress these are my personal opinions, and I would love to hear how you may agree or disagree in the comment section below, but please keep things constructive. First, I want to start with the Hemlok. The Hemlok buff was not only unnecessary, but made the gun way too good. The Hemlok was already a great weapon. It just required a good amount of skill to successfully use. I always saw it as a weapon perfectly balanced in the way they've intended the Havoc to be, between the quality of the weapon and the skill gap to use it. Now, not only did they reduce the vertical recoil to make the gun much more accessible at all skill levels, but with the lowered average health from the armor change, you can now frequently delete people in 2 bursts early to mid-game. Not to mention those 2 bursts now occur much faster, giving the opponents minimal time to either evade or turn to help their teammates from being beamed. This one seems like an easy fix by just reverting the changes entirely, or at the very least adding back the recoil. Thus, the fast burst time only enhances the amount of vertical recoil that's messing you up, in contrast to the time to mitigate it. Next, I want to tackle the Boogeyman Crypto. Crypto, while not exactly broken, has the value of 2 legends now. While this is less of an issue out of ranked and competitive, anytime a 3-man squad is running Crypto, you're now at an empirical disadvantage. Between the insta beacon read, the insta respawn, general UAV reconnaissance of the drone, general distractions offered by the drone, and of course the ult, Crypto's toolkit is literally twice the size of any other legend, while doing some of those things objectively better. While he should definitely feel like the ultimate hacker and the power should lie in his drone, I think they need to make it where the drone cannot insta-read beacons and insta-respawn, and instead have the usual timers. With the new drone hit points, it makes it extremely hard for a squad to actually counter Crypto from reading a beacon or respawning. Speaking of legends, let's talk everyone's favorite Robo-Bro, Pathfinder. The overall buff to recon characters, while very wanted and logical, absolutely stings to Pathfinder players. Without Pathfinder having the exclusive recon ability, adding him to a team comp now just feels far more limiting. I know that they've addressed in the notes that he'll be receiving a larger rework, aside from the ultimate cooldown when reading beacons, but I honestly think that just throwing this full recon class buff out there before figuring what Pathfinder's specific buff would be kinda slaps a lot of Pathfinder players in the face. Like, at least 5 seconds off the grappling hook would have been great. Seeing how the game has shifted around these recon buffs, I want to personally recommend, for the time being, taking what they did with the ult cooldown and applying it to the grappling hook. Each time he reads a beacon, just also decrease the cooldown of the grappling hook by a percentage and either give it a minimum cooldown speed so that gold helmet doesn't make it abusive, or make it so the gold helmet automatically takes it to that lowest cooldown speed. Finally, for the bad, I think the Turbocharger with the game's new time to kill is just presenting an awful overall experience for players. Respawn has spent so much time in the last couple of patches trying to precision rework the Havoc to find a perfect balance. But between the lower average health and the Turbocharger, it really feels like it's equally as problematic as it was just a couple of patches ago, especially when you already have the Volt to serve those needs as the close quarter energy bullet spray. At the sake of maintaining the armor system, which I believe is good for the game, I could only recommend the full removal of the Turbocharger, or at the very least, testing it as an heirloom level attachment of some sort. Okay, so we're finally moving on to the ugly. These are things I find to be atrocious, create awful gameplay scenarios, or just objectively broken. For example, there are plenty of games where I'm still seeing people come back from a Death Totem push and instantly Wraith Portal, even though there's supposed to be a 2-second delay from this update. So a major fix, just not actually working at all, file it under ugly. On a similar note, I think Crypto's drone needs to be reworked for the Storm. Currently, Cryptos are able to leave drones sitting at stormed beacons within range for an easier instant re-beacon to the next zone. Either making it so Crypto's drone range is half when in the Storm, or that the beacons out of Storm cannot be read should become the new norm. Alternatively, they could create a new system for how Storm affects abilities, where they have a time duration that lasts as long as the full HP of a traditional character in the Storm before being knocked. So like Crypto drones, Rampart walls, or Watson generators will all have a new timer taking damage at that rate, and then stop when a usual character would be knocked. This next one feels like just an oversight, but one that's important to call out. The replicators need to utilize a hold button to access interaction system in the same way you swap weapons or swap items when your inventory is full. The number of times you go to grab something off the replicator only to get pulled into the menu animation is insane. Because of this, you can find yourself getting gunned down easily if you go to quickly grab an item off the replicator while being attacked and accidentally trigger the animation instead. While this has only happened to me twice, I've easily racked up at least 30 knocks on other players from this exact situation. Now onto the big boogeyman gun, the Devotion. The Devotion is just as problematic as it was the first time it was a world spawn. On drop, it's absolutely insane with the new time to kill, but late game, the fact that you can get pinned down by 2 or more turbocharged Devotions due to their high lootability without even having a unique ammo type anymore is wild. Unlike the R99, the Devotion can easily delete things at long range, close quarters, and hip fire. It's not about the gun itself existing and being, powerful, as much as it is the frequency to have it throughout the game through looting. Not to mention this. The fact that they've allowed this specific crafting loadout as the daily more than once is insane. I literally don't even want to play the game if I see this as the daily. Having to always be prepared to deal with multiple devotions at once at any engagement is an absolute nightmare. This gun needs to be recreated immediately, or at the very least, remove the turbocharger and keep the stats for the devotion exactly how it is without it. And I would be remiss not to talk about the audio problems. Apex has never been a perfect game for audio, which sucks because even so, I love playing this game despite how broken that is and how much a battle royale depends on it. However, this season's audio is a nightmare. Between energy weapon shots being silenced, as if the Devo wasn't scary enough, there's missing footsteps, cross-map sound audio, random buzzing, and missing zipline audio. With Respawn opening a new studio dedicated to Apex, I'm really hoping these legacy audio issues will be fixed within a couple of months. However, if these audio issues are baked too deep into the base game of Apex, I'm afraid these things might be unfixable to a certain extent, given that we're 6 seasons in. Finally, I'd be insane to not talk about the Mozambique update. Respawn, how could you do this? 4 shots? You gave us 4 fucking shots. Everyone's gonna realize how broken the Mozambique is now. You're gonna have to gimme nerf it next season at this rate. Absolute garbage. Thanks for outing the best gun in the game. I'm uninstalling it as I'm recording this. Anyway, what do you guys think about Apex Legends Season 6? I would love to discuss your thoughts in the comment section down below. Also, while you're here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more videos and drop us a follow on Twitch where you'll get more Apex action. And until I see you guys next time, make sure to be good to each other, be good to yourselves, and I'll see you guys later.